Coming up tonight on YCN News, a serious truck accident in Lebanon, New Hampshire leaves the driver in the hospital. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker makes a visit to 1 Mile West in Sunapee, a look at what he had to say to supporters. And we continue our spotlight on preseason sports. Today we've got girls soccer. For more news, weather, and sports, stay tuned for YCN News, giving you your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region, southern Vermont, and Windsor County. News, sports, weather, and all that is happening in our area. The news on YCN, your local view.
Good evening, everyone. It is Friday, August 21st. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kurt Weedy, and welcome to YCN News. Well, it was a scary scene on Route 12A in Lebanon yesterday. First responders needed hydraulic tools to extricate a driver from his vehicle after a serious crash. Lebanon police and fire personnel responded to the scene shortly after 10 o'clock yesterday morning to find an extensively damaged truck and a severed traffic light blocking the north and southbound lanes of Route 12A. That near the intersection of I-91 southbound off-ramp. The driver of the truck was transported to nearby Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center for treatment, and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation remained on the scene until about 1 in the afternoon to replace the damaged traffic light. Lebanon police say the accident remains under investigation tonight and encourages anyone who may have witnessed the wreck to contact them at the number shown on your screen below. It took crews from 7 local fire departments to put out a fire in Newport yesterday that burned more than 6 acres of forest. Newport Fire and EMS said it first became aware of the blaze Wednesday evening after firefighters hiked a local trail to investigate smoke on Coit Mountain, but were forced to wait until morning to try and extinguish the blaze. Crews from nearby Newbury, Sunapee, Leominster, New London, Claremont, and Ascutney, Vermont returned to the scene in the morning and eventually had the fire under control by 2 in the afternoon. That with the help of about 35 firefighters. Newport Fire said the blaze was likely started when lightning struck a tree on the mountain located behind Newport High School. Changing gears and now onto the campaign trail for the presidential candidates seeking their respective party nominations. 2 Republican candidates were in the Granite State yesterday, both from the Republican Party. Florida Governor Jeb Bush was in New London yesterday morning and was followed by Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. He was over in Sunapee later in the day. Now, while Scott Walker's support in his home state is slowly declining, he hoped to garner support in New Hampshire, taking the spotlight at the 1 Mile West restaurant there. Wisconsin's Governor Scott Walker was in our region yesterday, stumping for votes in New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation primary for President of the United States. Gathered were interested citizens at the 1 Mile West restaurant in Sunapee. A packed house was eager to hear and question the candidate who made several important points about his run. He noted up front that his motivation was a concern for his children and that their future and the fact that he sees the country going in the wrong direction. Then he hit on one of his main themes, returning power to the states.
Today I want to tell you that as I look at this country and the things we need to do to reform government and take power out of Washington and send it back to our states and back to the people, when I talk about what we need to grow the economy, starting with first and foremost, repealing Obamacare once and for all, putting
A point the governor made several times was that he will not only take on Democrats, but his own party to get the job done, like he did in Wisconsin. He suggested that it was time to strengthen our military.
Sadly today, under the Obama-Clinton doctrine, we're leading from behind. And that has us headed towards a disaster. Think about it. We've got a president who 3 years ago today, drew a line in the sand and then allowed it to be crossed.
He took several questions from the House, including one that questioned the constitutional validity for the size of government.
You're a man after my own heart in the sense that I said this on the day I announced, and I've been talking about it since, about shifting power and resources from Washington to the states.
He went on to say that we need to enforce the laws of our nation through electronic verification with all employers. Governor Walker was asked about NAFTA.
How do you feel about NAFTA? I know Bernie Sanders, the old socialist, he's against it.
We need to have a balance. We need to have a level playing field, but we also can't ignore the fact that over 90% of the world's purchasing power is outside of the United States. because otherwise we're ceding markets to others, and increasingly, particularly when you look in the Pacific.
He concluded saying he is a fighter and a winner, as exemplified by his work in Wisconsin, which is a Democrat state, where he did not compromise his conservative principles and prevailed.
My plea to you would be, if you want someone who can do both, who can fight and win, not just win elections, although I've won 3 elections in 4 years in a blue state, but someone who can fight and win and get results and do it without compromising common sense conservative principles. I'm the only one in this field of great candidates that fits that bill. If that's what you want out of your next president, I'd ask for your vote.
And this morning, Walker was in Manchester at St. Anselm College for a Politics and Eggs event. He will continue his campaign 1,300 miles south in Alabama tomorrow. Now on to the other Republican presidential candidate in the area yesterday. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush stopped by McKenna's restaurant in New London to speak with potential voters. Bush encouraged the audience to focus more on his policies than his last name before touching on issues from immigration to Social Security. He even spent a significant amount of time talking about religion in the first-in-the-nation primary state not known for its religious prowess, telling the crowd that the first thing he'd do if elected president would be to pray. Bush remains one of the top GOP contenders, but trails business mogul Donald Trump in polls in both New Hampshire and nationwide. It was Bush's second straight day in the Granite State after making stops in Merrimack and Londonderry on Wednesday. Now, as always, we will continue to update you on candidate visits to the ever-important first-in-the-nation primary state. After the break on YCN News, turn up the heat, a chili festival for a great cause. Details when we come back.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Thanks for staying with us tonight on YCN News. I'm Kurt Weedy. We're back with politics. Vermont House Speaker Shep Smith has become the first candidate to throw his hat in the race for governor of the Green Mountain State. This coming after it was announced earlier this year that Governor Peter Shumlin would not be seeking a 4th term in office. Peter Shumlin has held the seat since 2010. Smith, on the other hand, announced his candidacy in his hometown of Morrisville earlier this week, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues from the House. The 49-year-old is in his 7th term in the Vermont House and has been Speaker since 2009. He is expected to face a Democratic primary battle with former lawmaker Matt Dunn of Heartland. State Transportation Secretary and former House member Sue Minter also is considering entering the race at this time, while potential Republican candidates include Lieutenant Governor Phil Scott. Frank Reed will become the Commissioner of the Department of Mental Health, effective today. Vermont Governor Peter Shumlin announced the staff appointment just yesterday. Reed has been the department's deputy commissioner since 2012. Reed became the department's interim commissioner when the position was vacated by Paul Dupree, who retired in June. Now, Reed brings extensive experience to this role. This is experience gained from more than 30 years as a clinical social worker and mental health professional. Now, prior to joining the Department of Mental Health in 1999, Reed spent many years in clinical positions at Rutland Mental Health Services and Rutland Regional Medical Center. And now, an update on the story we first brought you last fall. 29-year-old Nicholas Fuchs was sentenced to 1 to 2 years in New Hampshire State Prison today after pleading guilty to reckless conduct with a deadly weapon. Fuchs, who resides in Newberry, New Hampshire, was arrested in January of this year by the Sunapee Police Department. That after an extensive investigation into a shooting on Bradford Road back in September. Now, Fuchs was charged with firing several rounds from a 9mm handgun at a home located on 17 Bradford Road while it was occupied. The weapon was eventually recovered from a small pond in Newberry, helping lead police to his eventual arrest. Sunapee police say the shooting was an act of retaliation. And finally, on a lighter note, this summer hasn't been the hottest one on the record, but this weekend you can add some heat to it if that's your taste. Pat's Peak Ski Area is hosting the Fire on the Mountain Chili Fest, an annual celebration of all things spicy. Happening this Sunday, the family-friendly afternoon at Pat's Peak in Henniker, New Hampshire is filled with food, beverage, entertainment, and activities for the youngsters. The family festival is sponsored by the Henniker Rotary Club. Now, so far, the event has raised over $150,000 for local, regional, and international service and humanitarian projects. It has also provided aid to victims of Hurricane Irene, purchased smoke detectors for the Hillsborough and Henniker Fire Departments for residents, aided local food pantries and nonprofit organizations, and lastly, awarded scholarships to high school seniors who are going on to post-secondary education or trade schools. This is a spicy fundraiser for a great cause. Go to chillinewhampshire.org for full info on this event. Coming up next on YCN News, we've got some Kearsarge Chronicle for you on this Friday night. Sean Bowman speaks to Russell Larry of the New Hampshire Association of Police Chiefs. That conversation is after the break, so please stay with us.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Mike Pizzone. Well, on the bright side, we've certainly needed all this rain, but unfortunately it looks like things may remain wet for the bulk of the weekend. Showers will likely continue into the evening tonight before eventually wrapping up by around 8. Temperatures will bottom out at about 62 degrees this evening and then climb right back up into the lower 80s during the day tomorrow, with partly sunny skies and chances of rain throughout the morning and afternoon. Skies will become mostly cloudy tomorrow evening with a low of 65 degrees, before an all-around wet one on Sunday with rain expected throughout the day, a high of 78 during the day, and a low of around 66 Sunday evening. Now let's check out our community calendar to see what's happening over the weekend. The 66th Annual Cornish Fair in Sullivan County 4-H Fair continues tomorrow through Sunday from 7 in the morning until 11 at night at the Cornish Fairgrounds. Admission is $10 for adults and free for children under 12. And speaking of fairs, the 42nd Annual Apple Pie and Crafts Fair will be held tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the Town Commons in Newport, New Hampshire. There is no cost to attend and the event will be held rain or shine. And the Friends of the Fletcher Memorial Library in Ludlow, Vermont will hold its annual book sale tomorrow from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. All proceeds from the sale will benefit programs provided by the library. Well, we've heard from a lot of local high school football coaches over the past week, so today we thought we'd bring you an exclusive look at preseason practice for one of the top girls soccer teams in the area. So let's hear what Sunapee coach Miles Cooney had to say about this year's squad.
So our summer program is always kind of the same. We do gameplay, that we participate in the local summer league, and we go to a Keen Team Week. So those two things have happened this year, and we had good energy and felt really good about it. We do have some conditioning work to do. That's what they're doing now today. But once we get past that, I feel like we're ready to work together. You know, sometimes you have to work on that dynamic and get, but these kids are ready to go. That's what I think. That's what I see.
I also asked if there was a good mix between upperclassmen and newcomers on the team.
So there's a lot of juniors on this team. There's probably 8, 9 juniors by the time everyone's here and the team is on the field and ready to go. And so a lot of those kids have been playing roles on the team, and this is the year they all step forward, right, for soccer. You've seen a lot of them on the basketball courts and the softball fields, but this junior class now has to contribute here in the soccer program. In the past years, we've been heavy up top, a lot of seniors and juniors on those teams that went far, and so they've been playing roles. So this is the year that they're ready to step forward. The success they've had in basketball, the success they've had in softball, you can tell. It's just, when I talk about them being ready to play and ready to work together, you can tell that the success that they've had has put them there. So I'm going to capitalize on that the best I can.
The Lakers will play in their first regular season game August 31st when they travel to face Wilton Lineborough. And turning to baseball, last night's game between the New Hampshire Fisher Cats and the Reading Phillies was postponed due to rain. The Cats will host Binghamton tonight at 7 for the first of a 4-game series. That's been your look at local sports. I'm Mike Pizzone.
Thanks, Mike. Next, the second installment of Your Local Voice. This week, we asked residents what they thought about security in movie theaters around the country and if it made them feel safer. Stick around to find out what they had to say.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back. Now we've got the second part of Your Local Voice, where we ask area residents about how they feel about certain topics and issues in our region and in our country. Today we asked some residents of Claremont how they felt about movie theater security in light of Regal Cinema's recent change in operating procedure to now check all bags that come in the door for any weapons. Do they feel safer going into theaters with such measures in place? Let's hear what they had to say.
Well, I personally don't care about people checking bags or pockets for hidden weapons. It is an issue in the U.S., you know, with movie theater shootings. But I would definitely feel more safe with people checking the bags. It's a security precaution to make sure that people don't get hurt or anything. So like if people raise issues, then they probably shouldn't go to a movie theater. It's a safety precaution everyone should understand.
I think it's a great idea. I've never not felt safe in the movie theater, but now because of the recent events, I think that it would spark an interest maybe, or that it might become a trend. So if they didn't allow bags in the movie theaters, I would feel a lot safer.
All right, tune in next Friday for your next Local Voice segment, where you can hear from your neighbors about what they have to say about local and national issues. Thank you to our viewers for joining us tonight. We do invite you to check out our Facebook page and our YouTube page as well. It's full of all our past and current content. For YCN News, your local view, I'm Kurt Weedy. Have a safe and exciting weekend.